Hello everyone and welcome back to Navis Nobelite. I am Captain Zelnick and today we are doing a special review video. Now, one of the most difficult things to find is an acceptable replacement for a lot of the counters that we need to use in Battlefleet Gothic, and it can be kind of a pain in the rear because the old counters that are many years old, these old ones that are made out of basically gaming cardboard, are old and they're beginning to deteriorate. I think mine may be some of the finest still in circulation and active play. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple of unused boxes in someone's basement somewhere, but in reality, the hardest thing that we really need to do to play the game is find a good alternative for these counters. And there are a couple of decent 3D printed options out there. I have a couple of examples. But OurilGames has decided to make their counters out of acrylic. Let me see if I can get a decent zoom on that. Yeah, so acrylic has a certain number of advantages over 3D printing. One, they're far more durable. They don't require a giant 3D printer, and everything's done basically by laser etching. Now, there are a couple of downsides to it, and we'll get on to the negatives, but I want to make something very clear. I absolutely did pay for some of what I have. I paid for specifically a set of 10 of each of the Tau markers for ordnance. OurilGames was very generous in sending me some additional things to do reviews on, and recognize I did not pay for those, but I do not intend on being a shill for them. I will give you my honest opinion for them. So first things first, we obviously have all of the core markers. We are still lacking a example. I think I believe they have all the markers. I don't know if they have the detection markers, though they are not used very often. If they do make them, I'm pretty sure they do. You can go on OurilGames. It'll be linked down in the description. They have virtually everything, and they are determined to have everything for the game, at least when it comes to the regular play markers. Because they even have torpedo. I think they have torpedo bombers, but I know they have assault boats for everyone who uses assault boats. And if they don't have something, let them know. They're actually in our Discord server, and they will make it. They're very responsive. Now, the first and most notable thing that we have to be concerned about is how accurate are these counters to what we need. So I thankfully have examples of all of the original stuff, which is the most acceptable for any kind of play. So obviously we have their torpedo marker. This is an alternate 3D printed one that I had made years ago, and here's the original. So I'm going to adjust my camera here. I apologize. We're going to do a direct comparison. So here's the original marker. This is what is determined to be the actual game legal marker, and I am placing it directly over as you can see, it is pretty darn close. It is a little bit wider. It is a little bit longer. Now compare that to the other marker that I have. Now, recognizing full well that you're never going to get it perfect unless you have the originals. And as you can see, that one is also bigger. And if we do that, actually, let's do that direct comparison. Let's take this one and put it over. And as you can see, it's a far closer match. Now, I don't know of anyone who's going to complain necessarily. These are functioning, I'm sure, off of the specific rules in the book, and these old markers probably don't match that. So I can't imagine anyone complaining. It is not a perfect comparison to the originals, but I don't know if anyone is really going to complain too hard. They look, in my opinion, better than the 3D printed one. And I mean, they don't have that nice, pretty little piece of artwork on there, but they do the job, and they're certainly more durable than the old, cardboard. And they're more durable, than the 3D printed option. Now we have the thing that I actually paid money for, which are the counters for fighters and bombers. Now they have fighters, bombers. I know they have assault boats. So let's do a direct comparison, shall we? Since these are clear, I'm just going to put that. And I drop it and make myself look like a fool on YouTube. So what else is new? Now these are basically a direct match. The only difference is you can see a little bit of that edge coming off the side. I can't imagine that would ever be a problem. So These are a near perfect match. Now, I was told by OurilGames that these can be painted with a little bit of acrylic paint to make it match your fleet, which is fine. It's never going to look, as nice as the old counters do, but, that's not necessarily, that's not necessary if you don't need it. These are meant to represent things and represent the counters. If you want to paint them, you can. Really, what I like about them is, again, they're acrylic. They are tough and durable. Now, we're going to go into some really important stuff. The blast marker. Now, again, I did not pay for the blast marker, so please bear in mind. It only has the markings on one side. And how close is it to the original blast marker? Let's find out. All right, now you can see there is a pretty substantial deviation. Now, it's not as substantial as the other blast markers that I've seen, and it is certainly not as dramatic as like the 3D pop out blast markers that I've seen. This is actually better than I would say most blast marker counters because it is flat, and you want your blast markers to be flat because you need to move your ships onto flat surfaces. So this is pretty dang good, and it's pretty dang close. Now, I don't blame them for necessarily not getting the perfect dimensions of it. That's a hard thing to match. Really, what's important is the edges all are all match, so you have, roughly speaking, the same amount of area covered by the new counter. And it has a nice little graphic of a bang on it. I appreciate that. So these are pretty good. I give that, like, if I were to give a percentage of accuracy, I'd give this like a 92 or 3% accurate. These counters are like a 99% accurate. Torpedo counters are, pretty much the same as the other 3D printed torpedo counters out there. They're just in acrylic, so it's never going to actually be a problem, really, for anything. Now, we have this tool here, and we have a base. Now, I just measured this base, and it is 32 millimeters, so it is to proper tournament length. It does come with specific rods that fit in here with it. Let's see if it fits with a classic rod. Not really. It doesn't fit in there. I mean, if you go in there and you drill it out, you may be able to get it to work, but it does come with its own specific rods for it. And it's accurate. It has its own movement markers. It is made out of acrylic, which in this particular scenario, I'm probably not as much of a fan. I like having a nice clear base because it makes it look like they're floating in space, or I like it to be painted. And because of this 3D, this laser etching, this doesn't actually feel like the same quality material as this. It may be a different kind of acrylic or a different plastic, but I prefer a clear base or something that's easier to paint than something like this. But if you want a, decent base, it isn't smoothed off to the edges, which is traditional, but that's fine. It doesn't need to be. No, they're not bad bases. They do their job. Now, finally, there is this. Now, again, for the bases and this tool, I did not pay for it. They sent it to me to be reviewed. Now, this is supposed to be a movement assistant tool that comes with these crescents, which are meant to attach into this. The biggest problem I have is that this is not one complete tool. These things should all be effectively attached to one another so they can't just fall off. But as you can see, it's designed to slide up and down to help you with accurate moving and turning, because it has a marker for effectively, hold on. I know this is the large base, but as you can see, it has a little marker there, so it'll be able to help you make your turns. If I have they didn't send me a large base as an example, but as you can see, it fits flush with a large base. And if you have markers, it will help you make an accurate turn to 45 or 90 or any of the denominations therein. And it will help you, yes, these are all accurate to centimeters, move reasonably smoothly. It'll help us, it basically will assist in accurate movement. Now, do I have criticisms of this? Yeah, if you look down here, you see these are curved. From here to here is not 20 centimeters, it's 21 centimeters. And nothing in the game really functions off of a movement of 21 centimeters. Now, if this was from here to here, 20 centimeters, that would be perfect, because a lot of things in this game function off of the basic 20 centimeter band. So this is a little long. Second criticism, this thing is just parts. I would like this to be a complete kit that actually, you know, fits together and stays together. If it's separated out like this, it's going to get lost. It's going to not be as firm and accurate. This is very loose in here. There's a lot of wiggle. I'd like this to be good and firm as it slides, so maybe make that a little bit smaller. Beyond that, though, it's a useful tool. I personally wouldn't buy it. I don't really have a need for it because I have a measuring tape. But now, if this were super accurate, if this length from basically base here to a base here, so I put another base here, if this were from here to there, 20 centimeters, it would be a perfect movement stick, okay? And if this were attached to the actual stick so it didn't just fall off or get lost, this thing would actually be really handy, and I would highly recommend buying it. But not going to recommend this personally. It can be useful, but it's not useful enough, if that makes any sense. All right, so let's talk about pricing. Now, I purchased of these fighters and these bombers, 10 of each, and that cost me about 30 to 40 bucks. Now, there's a reason for this. The guy who makes these is in Spain, so there's going to be an issue of getting it from Spain to America. But it's still, that's pretty pricey. That is a pricey expenditure for just a series of acrylic counters. So this is definitely going to be a luxury item for BFG players who are generally interested in getting things on the cheap. So let's not mince words. These counters, all of them, you need a good amount of them, and they're not cheap for anybody who doesn't live in Spain. And even in Spain, they're pretty pricey. So bear that in mind. You know, also when buying like things like this, they come in sets of 5. That's a problem. BFG functions primarily, when it comes to ordnance of all types, in sets of 4. So you have typically launch capacity 4 to 8. You rarely have issues of 6 or 9. But broadly speaking, everyone works off divisions of 4, and these are sold in divisions of 5. Which means if you're, say, a old school TAL player and you need between 16 and 24 ordnance counters, this gets expensive very quickly. And honestly, if I were at OurilGames, I would say let us select a very specific amount of markers that we need, of fighters and bombers. Let us increment the amount of exactly what we need and then price it out per counter. That's what really needs to be done. Otherwise, you're buying them in blocks of 5 of 5, which means you're not going to be using, you either have too few or too many, which is, neither of them is a good thing. The blast markers, again, we need a lot of these. We need a lot of these blast markers. We're talking in a 1,500 point game, I've had as many as 40 blast markers on the table. That's very expensive for, admittedly, a nice counter. So torpedoes, again, torpedoes are the same thing. I would recommend, if we have different color options for torpedoes, that's great. If they are there, great. Thank you so much for different color options. But we do need different color options for torpedoes so we don't mix up who or what is firing them, or if there are special torpedoes. Just, I would have the standard color options, you know, green, red, blue, yellow, and, you know, give us a nice little rainbow pack of like 15 torpedo counters with and divide it up between the colors. You can have 5 of green, 5 of red, 5 of blue. That'll basically cover most of your games when it comes to having either different kinds of torpedoes or different players using torpedoes on the board, so you don't mix up who's or who's. So overall, also when it comes to the bases, I mean, they're not bad. They do their job. Again, they're expensive. I'm pretty sure he does have large bases. I haven't seen them, but I'm pretty sure he does have them. I didn't really troll through the entire web store, but again, you can go and have a look at it. Link is going to be down in the description, as you can see. Also, these things come with a paper base to them. You have to scrape that off. That's fine. I can be labored to pull paper off of acrylic. So overall, my final review is, if you have the money, they're worth it. If you are crunched for money, they're so far away and they're so expensive that it may not be worth it. Now, if you have like that one fleet you love the most and you really, really want them to have the shiniest of stuff, these counters would be great because they're very fleet specific. They look like the stuff from the fleet. As you can see, this is a Manta. These are the Barracudas. The Imperial Navy has their fighters and their bombers and their assault boats. They have all the ordnance at hand. So yeah, they really do care about making everything. It's just expensive. Recognize what you're paying for. So overall, I would recommend if you have the money. If you don't, just stick with 3D printed minis or 3D printed counters. I do thank them deeply, however, for making the counters for this game and giving us a high quality option, because 3D printing is nice, but it's brittle and, you know, it's bland and gray. It's always the same color unless you use FDM, in which case it looks like FDM. So that's all for this review. Remember, this is OurilGames on Etsy. Go ahead and have a look. The link will be down in the description. You all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.